Many are called, but few are chosen. These are not just words. They are a divine reality that determines the course of our spiritual lives. In Matthew 22 verse 14, Jesus gives us this powerful statement, but have you ever stopped to ask, what does this really mean? Why are so many called but only a few chosen? And more importantly, how do you move from simply being called to actually being chosen by God? But before we continue, I will leave below a link to one of our ebooks to improve your relationship with God and help you begin to understand the reason for certain things and trust Him more. God has placed a calling on every life. It may be a call to salvation, a call to ministry, a call to serve, or a call to a specific purpose. But if calling alone were enough, everyone would fulfill their divine destiny. Instead, we see many people who recognize God's voice yet never step into the fullness of their calling. This is the difference between being called and being chosen. To truly understand this, we need to go deeper. The Bible is filled with stories of people who were called, but only those who were willing to be shaped, refined, and obedient became the chosen. Are you willing to go through the process? Because being chosen is not about favoritism. It is about those who are willing to answer the call, submit to God's preparation, endure testing, and remain faithful until the end. Let's begin with the foundation. In Matthew 22 verses 1 to 14, Jesus tells the parable of the wedding feast. A king prepares a great banquet for his son and sends out invitations. But those who were invited refused to come. Some ignored the call, others were too busy with their own lives, and some even mistreated the king's messengers. In response, the king extended the invitation to everyone, the good and the bad alike. This represents God's invitation to salvation. Have you already clicked on the like button and subscribed to the channel? This helps us understand that you are enjoying our videos and YouTube is sending you more. We count on your help. Let's go back to the video. However, there is a crucial detail at the end of the parable. One man attended the wedding but was not wearing the proper wedding garments. The king confronted him and cast him out into darkness. Why? Because accepting the invitation is not enough. You must be prepared. You must be transformed. This is the difference between being called and being chosen. The first key to moving from called to chosen is recognizing the call itself. Many people hear God's call but do not recognize it. Samuel, for example, was called by God as a child, but he did not recognize the voice of the Lord until Eli guided him. In 1 Samuel 3 verses 9 to 10, Eli told Samuel, "If he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" How many times has God been calling you, but you have mistaken His voice for something else? To recognize God's call, you must be in His presence. Prayer, fasting, and spending time in the Word are essential. Psalm 119 verse 105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." If you are not immersing yourself in God's presence, you will struggle to hear His voice. Once you recognize the call, the next step is preparation. Many assume that once they understand their calling, things will immediately fall into place. But the Bible shows us that before God elevates someone, He prepares them through seasons of testing and refinement. Look at Joseph. He had a dream that he would one day rule, but before that dream became reality, he was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Why does God allow these trials? Because preparation shapes character. Proverbs 17 verse 3 says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart." If you are not faithful in the small things, how can you be trusted with greater responsibility? Luke 16 verse 10 states, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." Ask yourself, are you willing to go through God's process? Are you using this season to grow spiritually, develop discipline, and refine your gifts? Many people never move from being called to chosen because they refuse to endure preparation. One of the most difficult but essential steps in becoming chosen is surrender. In Luke 9 verse 23, Jesus said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." Being chosen means total submission to God's will. Look at Abraham. He was called, but his journey of faith required him to leave everything behind. Genesis 12 verse 1 states, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." He did not receive all the details, he simply obeyed. Are you willing to leave behind what is comfortable for the sake of your calling? Look at the disciples. They were called by Jesus, but to be chosen they had to leave their careers, families, and security to follow Him. Matthew 4 verses 19 to 20 says, "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed Him. Ask yourself, what is God asking you to surrender? A toxic relationship? A lifestyle that hinders your spiritual growth? A personal ambition that does not align with His will? Many are called, but only those willing to surrender are chosen. Another critical step in being chosen is endurance. Every person God chooses must go through a season of testing. Look at Job. He was righteous, yet God allowed him to be tested to prove his faithfulness. Look at Peter. He was called, but he had to endure failure before he could be the leader God designed him to be. Look at Jesus himself. Before he began his ministry, he was led into the wilderness for 40 days of testing. James 1 verse 12 says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." If you give up during the test, you will never step into your calling. The final step in being chosen is stepping into purpose. Moses finally led Israel out of Egypt. David finally took the throne. Jesus, after enduring the cross, was glorified. You were not just called to exist, you were chosen for a divine assignment. 2 Timothy 1 verses 6 to 7 says, "For this reason I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline." It is time to activate your calling. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Step out in faith. Begin serving, leading, and walking in obedience. Many are called, but few are chosen. The question is, will you be among the chosen? God is calling you. But are you willing to answer? If this message has spoken to you, leave a comment below. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper in your walk with God and step fully into your calling, check out my ebook Rich Life with God, a guide to walking in divine purpose. The link is in the description. Now the choice is in your hands. Will you move from called to chosen?